The new Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD, was adopted by African heads of state and government of the OAU in 2001 and was ratified by the African Union, in 2002 to address Africa's development problems within a new paradigm. NEPAD's main objectives are to reduce poverty, put Africa on a sustainable development path, halt the marginalization of Africa, and empower women. NEPAD is a merger of the Millennium Partnership for Africa's Recovery Program, MAP, and the Omega Plan. The merger was finalized on July 3, 2001. Out of the merger, the New Africa Initiative, NI, was born. NI was then approved by Organization of African Union's Heads of State and Government Summit on July 11, 2001. Its policy framework was finalized on October 23, 2001, forming NEPAD, the New Partnership for Africa's Development. What is NEPAD? It is a holistic, comprehensive integrated strategic framework for the socio-economic development of Africa. The NEPAD provides a vision for Africa, a statement of the problems facing the continent and a program of action to resolve these problems in order to reach the vision. It is a plan that has been conceived and developed by African leaders. It is a comprehensive integrated development plan that addresses key social, economic and political priorities in a coherent and balanced manner. It is a commitment that African leaders are making to African people and to the international community, to place Africa on a path of sustainable growth. It is a commitment African leaders are making to accelerate the integration of the African continent into the global economy. It is a framework for a new partnership with the rest of the world. It is a call to the rest of the world to partner Africa in her own development on the basis of her own agenda and program of action. NEPAD's goals and priorities. NEPAD's goals are threefold: to promote accelerated growth and sustainable development, to eradicate widespread and severe poverty, and to halt the marginalization of Africa in the globalization process. These goals translate into 6 concrete sectoral priorities. First, bridge the infrastructure gap. This priority is tackled along 4 different angles: bridging the digital divide, energy, transport, water and sanitation. Second, build human resources. This priority regroups 4 missions: reduce poverty, bridge the education gap, reverse the brain drain and improve health. Third, develop a strong and sustainable agriculture. Fourth, ensure the safeguard and defense of the environment. Fifth, spread and favor culture across the continent. Sixth, finally, develop science and technology. The implementation of NEPAD is expected to bring about economic growth and development, increased employment, a reduction in poverty and inequity, the diversification of productive activities, enhanced international competitiveness and increased exports, and finally an increased integration of the African continent. The New Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD, is an economic development program of the African Union, (OAU). NEPAD was adopted by the OAU at the 37th session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government in July 2001 in Lusaka, Zambia. NEPAD aims to provide an overarching vision and policy framework for accelerating economic cooperation and integration among African countries. NEPAD is a merger of 2 plans for the economic regeneration of Africa: the Millennium Partnership for the African Recovery Program, MAP, led by former President Thabo Mbeki of South Africa in conjunction with former President Olusegun Obasanjo of Nigeria and President Abdelaziz Bouteflika of Algeria, and the Omega Plan for Africa developed by President Abdoulaye Wade of Senegal. At a summit in Sirte, Libya, March 2001, the Organization of African Unity, OAU, agreed that the MAP and Omega plans should be merged. The UN Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, developed a compact for Africa's recovery based on both these plans and on resolutions on Africa adopted by the United Nations Millennium Summit in September 2000, and submitted a merged document to the Conference of African Ministers of Finance and Ministers of Development and Planning in Algiers, May 2001. In July 2001, the OAU Assembly of Heads of State and Government meeting in Lusaka, Zambia, adopted this document under the name of the New African Initiative, NI. The leaders of G8 countries endorsed the plan on July 20, 2001, and other international development partners, including the European Union, China, and Japan, also made public statements indicating their support for the program. The heads of State and Government Implementation Committee, SGIC, for the project finalized the policy framework and named it the New Partnership for Africa's Development on October 23, 2001. NEPAD is now a program of the African Union, O, that has replaced the OAU in 2002, though it has its own secretariat based in South Africa to coordinate and implement its programs. NEPAD's four primary objectives are, to eradicate poverty, promote sustainable growth and development, integrate Africa in the world economy, and accelerate the empowerment of women. It is based on underlying principles of a commitment to good governance, democracy, human rights, and conflict resolution, and the recognition that maintenance of these standards is fundamental to the creation of an environment conducive to investment and long-term economic growth. NEPAD seeks to attract increased investment, capital flows and funding, providing an African-owned framework for development as the foundation for partnership at regional and international levels. In July 2002, the Durban O Summit supplemented NEPAD with a declaration on democracy, political, economic and corporate governance. According to the declaration, states participating in NEPAD believe in just, honest, transparent, accountable and participatory government and probity in public life. Accordingly, they undertake to work with renewed determination to enforce, among other things, the rule of law, the equality of all citizens before the law, individual and collective freedoms, the right to participate in free, credible, and democratic political processes, and adherence to the separation of powers, including protection for the independence of the judiciary and the effectiveness of parliaments. The Declaration on Democracy, Political, Economic and Corporate Governance also committed participating states to establish an African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM, to promote adherence to and fulfillment of its commitments. The Durban Summit adopted a document setting out the stages of peer review and the principles by which the APRM should operate. Further core documents were adopted at a meeting in Abuja in March 2003, including a Memorandum of Understanding to be signed by governments wishing to undertake the peer review. Ever since it was set up, there has been some tension over the place of NEPAD within the African Union, given its origins outside the O, and the continuing dominant role of South Africa symbolized by the location of the Secretariat in South Africa. Successive O summits and meetings of the SGIC have proposed the greater integration of NEPAD into the O's structures and processes. In March 2007 there was a brainstorming session on NEPAD held in Algeria, at which the future of NEPAD and its relationship with the O was discussed by an ad hoc committee of heads of state. The committee again recommended the fuller integration of NEPAD with the O. In April 2008, a review summit of 5 heads of state, Presidents Mbeki of South Africa, Wade of Senegal, Bouteflika of Algeria, Mubarak of Egypt and Yar'Adua of Nigeria, met in Senegal with a mandate to consider the progress in implementing NEPAD and report to the next O summit to be held in Egypt in July 2008. The SGIC, to which the NEPAD Secretariat reports, comprises 3 states for each region of the African Union, with former President Obasanjo, Nigeria, as elected chair, and Presidents Bouteflika, Algeria, and Wade, Senegal, as deputy chairman. The SGIC meets several times a year and reports to the O Assembly of Heads of State and Government. There is also a steering committee, comprising 20 O member states, to oversee the development of policies, programs, and projects. This committee reports to the SGIC. The NEPAD Secretariat, now the NEPAD Planning and Coordinating Agency, is based in Midrand, South Africa. The first CEO was Wiseman Ngulu of South Africa, 2001 to 2005, and the second Mozambican Firmino Mukabli, 2005 to 2008. On April 1, 2009, Ibrahim Hassan Mayaki accepted the position as the third CEO. The NEPAD Secretariat is not responsible for the implementation of development programs itself, but works with the African regional economic communities, the building blocks of the African Union. The role of the NEPAD Secretariat is one of coordination and resource mobilization. Many individual African states have also established national NEPAD structures responsible for liaison with the continental initiatives on economic reform and development programs. Its partners: United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA; African Development Bank; Development Bank of Southern Africa, DBSA; Investment Climate Facility, ICF; African Capacity Building Foundation; Office of the UN Under-Secretary General and Special Advisor on Africa; IDC, the Industrial Development Corporation, sponsor of NEPAD. The 8 priority areas of NEPAD are: political, economic, and corporate governance, agriculture, infrastructure, education, health, science and technology, market access and tourism, and environment. During the first few years of its existence, the main task of the NEPAD Secretariat and key supporters was the popularization of NEPAD's key principles, as well as the development of action plans for each of the sectoral priorities. NEPAD also worked to develop partnerships with international development finance institutions including the World Bank, G8, European Commission, UNECA and others, and with the private sector. After this initial phase, more concrete programs were developed, including the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, CAADP, aimed at assisting the launching of a green revolution in Africa, based on a belief in the key role of agriculture in development. To monitor its progress, the Regional Strategic Analysis and Knowledge Support System was created. The Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, PIDA, which comprises numerous transboundary infrastructure projects in the 4 sectors: transport, energy, water, and ICT, aimed at boosting intra-African trade and interconnecting the continent. The NEPAD Science and Technology Program, including an emphasis on research in areas such as water science and energy. The e-Schools Program, adopted by the SGIC in 2003 as an initiative to equip all 600,000 primary and secondary schools in Africa with IT equipment and Internet access within 10 years, in partnership with several large IT companies. See NEPAD e-School Program. The launch of a Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund, PAIDF, by the Public Investment Corporation of South Africa, to finance high-priority cross-border infrastructure projects. Capacity building for continental institutions, working with the African Capacity Building Foundation, the Southern Africa Trust, UNECA, the African Development Bank, and other development partners. One of NEPAD's priorities has been to strengthen the capacity of and linkages among the regional economic communities. NEPAD was involved with the Timbuktu Manuscripts Project, although it is not entirely clear to what extent. NEPAD was initially met with a great deal of skepticism from much of civil society in Africa as playing into the Washington Consensus model of economic development. In July 2002, members of some 40 African social movements, trade unions, youth and women's organizations, NGOs, religious organizations and others endorsed the African Civil Society Declaration on NEPAD, rejecting NEPAD. A similar hostile view was taken by African scholars and activist intellectuals in the 2002 Accra Declaration on Africa's Development Challenges. Part of the problem in this rejection was that the process by which NEPAD was adopted was insufficiently participatory. Civil society was almost totally excluded from the discussions by which it came to be adopted. More recently, NEPAD has also been criticized by some of its initial backers, including notably Senegalese President Abdoulaye Wade, who accused NEPAD of wasting hundreds of millions of dollars and achieving nothing. Like many other intergovernmental bodies, NEPAD suffers from slow decision-making, and a relatively poorly resourced and often cumbersome implementing framework. The great lack of information about the day-to-day activities of the NEPAD Secretariat, the website is notably uninformative, does not help its case. However, the program has also received some acceptance from those who were initially very critical, and, in general, has seen its status become less controversial as it becomes more established and its programs become more concrete. The aim of promoting greater regional integration and trade among African states is welcomed by many, even as the fundamental macroeconomic principles NEPAD endorses remain contested. The new Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD, an African Union strategic framework for Pan-African socio-economic development addresses critical challenges facing the continent, poverty, development, and Africa's marginalization internationally, and provides unique opportunities for African countries to take full control of their development agenda, to work more closely together, and to cooperate more effectively with international partners. NEPAD manages a number of programs and projects in 6 theme areas. These themes are agriculture and food security, climate change and natural resource management, regional integration and infrastructure, human development, economic and corporate governance, cross-cutting issues, including gender, capacity development, and ICT. Thank you for watching this video.